I am going to skip the standard introduction. As you can probably tell, since I don't use the special bumper very often. And this is not going to be the episode I intended to put out, since this should be a Gnostic Texts episode. But given what has happened in Portland, Oregon over the past few days, I feel that I have to address that, since there doesn't seem to be a lot of coverage about it in the media, and a lot of people who seem to be shying away from it, but it has very, very disturbing implications for where we are headed as a nation. And I will have things in the show notes for news articles, video, things like that. The news articles will be from mainstream sources like the New York Times and the Washington Post, not some crazy whack job site. Although I realize some of you might argue that the New York Times is a crazy whack job site, but you get my meaning. And the video, you will be able to see that it is exactly what it is presented as being. So even though you may not be familiar with the person who tweeted that video, the video's there. You can look at it and you can say, that's wrong, or there's definitely something here that needs to be investigated. So for those of you who are unaware, on Wednesday, there began to be reports in very left-leaning media that militarized federal agents were showing up in Portland at the protests. The militarized agents were wearing combat uniforms, bulletproof vests, helmets, face masks. They had police across their chest, but they did not, as they are supposed to, have their name on their uniform, nor did they have a badge identifying what type of police they were, whether they were city police, FBI, or whatever. And they were grabbing people off the street, taking them to federal buildings, putting them in there, telling them you're under arrest, talking to them for a few minutes, and then releasing them without really identifying themselves. As more information has come to light, we have found out that yes, indeed, this is actually happening. They are grabbing a number of different people. The mayor of Portland has complained about this. The governor of Oregon has complained about this, saying these are federal forces in our state and in our city, and we do not want them there. The evidence indicates that these agents are representatives of Customs and Border Patrol. They have been sent to Portland officially because there has been damage and graffiti to federal monuments. The reality is that the people who have been grabbed were nowhere near any kind of federal monument, and they were spray painting. Like, there was a storefront that had been boarded up in one of the videos you can watch, and somebody was spray painting something on there, and these guys show up in their military style uniforms, grab the person, throw them into a rental van, and take them off. This is exactly the kind of shit that happened in Pinochet's Chile. It's exactly the kind of shit that happened in the Soviet Union, where somebody would be walking along, the secret police would roll up, grab them, and nobody would ever see them again. This should scare the hell out of you. Because there are some technicalities as to why this is not legal. And of course, we know Trump has no problem violating the law. And, Customs and Border Patrol, we know, run concentration camps. Because that's what they do with people they think are illegal immigrants. So, this should have you screaming that something's wrong, something needs to be done about it. And as far as the political side, the Democrats, you've got Oregon's senators and representatives in Congress basically writing strongly worded letters, but we have not heard from, so far as I know, Speaker Pelosi or Vice President Biden on this subject. And there does not seem to be any movement in the House to cut off funding or do something about this. Trump has also said, we've got some big operation planned for Tuesday. Now, it will be Monday morning when this goes out, and I don't know when you'll hear this. It could very well be that Trump is just bullshitting us, as that is a behavior pattern of authoritarian types, as they bullshit a whole bunch of times and then they actually do it when they think your guard is down. I don't know. We won't know until Tuesday rolls around. We do know they are talking about doing the same thing in other cities that are having demonstrations. And how bad can those demonstrations be? Because you're not seeing anything on the national news about them. And that's not because they're not happening, but it's because they're not terribly exciting anymore. In fact, the demonstrations in Portland had dropped considerably over recent weeks until these agents showed up and started arresting people, and now there's more and more people out on the street protesting. There is a video that I will link to of a gentleman he's from what you can see in the video, he's a tall, well-built, muscular guy. And he's just standing there, and these agents are, they're got smoke grenades at the very least, if not tear gas, that they're, have deployed because they're walking through smoke towards him. And he's just standing there. And one of the agents starts hitting him with a baton. Then they spray him with mace and possibly tear gas. They spray him with something, and it looks, the mace canisters and the tear gas canisters that they use to spray people with look identical, so it's impossible to tell. Dude does not respond to him, like he doesn't attack them or anything like that. He stands there and takes it, and then after he gets hit the second time with the spray, he turns, walks back, and you see he's wearing a navy sweatshirt, and it's a sweatshirt that only people who have been in the Navy wear. So everybody was like, ooh, he's military or ex-military, and then he turns back around, flips him off the bird, and walks away. He has since been tracked down. I will have a link to a news article in the show notes that has an interview with him, and dude was there. He had, hadn't been protesting prior to this, and he said, I just wanted to talk to them. I just wanted to explain to them that they've taken an oath to uphold the Constitution, and they are in violation of that oath. And he didn't even get to do that. And we have the issue, which I have no clue as to the answers of any of this. All right, these agents are there. The mayor doesn't want them there. The governor doesn't want them there. The agents are apparently operating in coordination with the local police department. And you have to ask yourself, well, why isn't the mayor prohibiting the police from operating in coordination with these agents? Is it that he does not have the authority, or is it that he's told the police you're not to coordinate with these guys and they're doing it anyways? That's a real question, the very serious question, and I don't have an answer to it because I don't know enough about the details of the law, and I don't know what the governor could do to stop these guys. Somebody on a message board I go to was like, well, why don't they call out why didn't the governor activate the National Guard and have them do something about it? Well, one of the posters on that message board is a retired cop who lives in Alabama, is friends with people who were cops in the 60s when the civil rights movement was going on, when the President Kennedy had to send in the National Guard to open the schools to people of color. The president can federalize the National Guard, and they have to obey him. So if the governor calls in, activates the National Guard and sends them in there to round these agents who are operating in a manner they're not supposed to be doing, all Trump has to do is federalize them, and then control passes from the governor to Trump. Now, I don't know if there are state police that she could get to come in there. Somebody in one of the Twitter threads I'll link to, they have a good discussion about what's happened and why Portland was selected out of all the other possible states, because Portland is a blue state. Oregon is a blue state and Portland is a blue city, even though, like the eastern half of Oregon is very Republican. Oregon has racist origins. When the original constitution for the state of Oregon was that only white people could live there, and when and how that all got changed, I don't know. But that's I have read that other places that originally Oregon was supposed to be a white homeland inside the United States, a whites only homeland. Yeah, fucking A, right? We Americans are fucking disgusting people. And Portland apparently has a police department that has been under investigation and had all kinds of issues with things like police brutality. So it makes sense that they would inject these federal agents there, because the police department is more likely to work with the federal agents than they would in some other cities. However, given the New York Police Department's attitude, I would think it would work there as well, which is scary. It highlights some very, very large problems we've had in this country that have gone unnoticed by white people. People of color, of course, have known that there's a problem with policing in this country for ever. But, white people haven't noticed it until recently, and then only kind of, sort of. So, and we have the issue, what happens if the governor of Oregon can get somebody, with legal authority to arrest or stop these federal agents, and shooting breaks out? At that point, there's, it's like fucking full-on civil war, is it not? I don't know. And I don't see how, although it is entirely possible this could all kind of be forgotten at some point. After all, we're not really talking about the fact that they're still putting kids in cages on the border, but it seems unlikely. And if, as is planned, and Trump has announced this, that they're going to be rolling this out in other cities, Democratic cities, where Trump thinks things are bad, even though they're not necessarily so. We could have a real mess on our hands. And there is another link. I recognize that the source is not the best because it is the Daily Mail in the UK, but they do have what they say are official government documents talking about this, where Customs and Border Patrol is going to be setting up workshops in Chicago, a Democratic-controlled city that is having a lot of protests right now, to train civilians on how to arrest illegal immigrants, how to identify and arrest illegal immigrants. That should scare the fucking hell out of you, because who the fuck is going to sign up for that? It's not going to be Joe Blow. It's going to be the fucking shitheads who've been out there with their fucking guns in the State House steps and all these different states saying, we don't want to have to wear no fucking mask. You need to reopen the economy. So that is something that you have to think about. You have to recognize that we are in bad shape. And don't expect, although I could be wrong on this, but I would not be surprised if Trump does not lock the country back down, even though we need to be locked back down to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Simply because that puts the people who want to protest him in a dilemma. If everything's locked down, then the people who come out and protest are less likely to be exposed because the disease level is going to be lower. But if society is quote-unquote normal and people have to go out and protest, they know that there's a higher risk that they will be exposed to somebody who has the coronavirus, even if everybody's wearing a mask and practicing social distancing, which is a little hard to do when you've got guys shooting tear gas at you and you've got to run the fuck away. Even in Hong Kong, where they are some bad motherfuckers when it comes to handling police shooting tear gas and smoke grenades and all that shit at them, they stopped doing a lot of the protests due to the coronavirus because they didn't want to get sick and die. And we've got an election coming up, and that what I think is going on in Trump's head is, and this is at an unconscious level, I don't think it's a conscious level because he's not that clever, is that, we don't lock everything down, people are getting sicker, so everybody who goes out and protests because they don't like me is going to get sick and die and not be able to vote. This, of course, is rather limited thinking because those people will inadvertently infect people who are more likely to vote for Trump because they're elderly. That's, his base, the bulk of his base are the elderly, not 20-somethings or 30-somethings. The bulk of his base are people that older than 60. Those are the ones who are more likely to die. Now, granted, you get sick from the coronavirus, you might be fucked up for 3-4 months or more. And we're 5 months out, I think, from the election. 4 months out from the election. So, you've got that situation that, people may not be well enough to go vote. Which, if you can and you're worried about that, start looking at getting a mail-in ballot. Of course, they're fucking with the postal system, delaying the mail and slowing that down. So if you can get if you can order an absentee ballot or mail-in ballot now for the November election, and whenever it shows up, fucking fill it out and mail it in immediately, or just, risk going to the polls. Get a mask, get some gloves, get some hand sanitizer. I've mentioned this, I'm sure, in the past on the podcast. I go around everywhere with a backpack because I can fit my scooter in it, and, if I get just a couple of groceries or a few small things at the store, I can stick them in my backpack and still ride my scooter. But if, I get too much and I'm going to have to carry some of it, I'm not juggling bags in my hand and my scooter. The scooter goes in the backpack with a couple of the bags, and then I'm only holding one or two. Yes, as I said, I look like a fucking freak show when I do this, but you got to do what you got to do. And I would seriously, if you are listening to my voice, I would seriously think about what you're going to do if civil war breaks out. And do not think about it in the aspect of Red Dawn and you're going to be in the Wolverines, because believe me, I have talked to enough refugees from countries where there have been civil wars to know it doesn't go down that way. It might in the beginning, but it pretty quickly turns ugly and gets very, very nasty. I would start thinking about what kind of supplies you need. I would have a go bag, or a shit hits the fan bag, where if you've got to evacuate because, people are burning down your neighborhood or it's being bombed by somebody, you've got a bag that has got your essentials that you can, just grab it because it's by the door or is always in the car, and you can get the fuck out and go. I will be doing a future episode on what you should have in those things, because I've been poking around for a little while, a couple of months actually, because I've been thinking about this, to see what you should have in one of those things, and they're fucking insane what people are talking about. Because one of the things they say is like, well, you should carry 3 days worth of water. Or I forget exactly how many days worth of water it is, but it's several days worth of water. And it's like, the water alone is 75 fucking pounds. Like I said, I have a backpack that I carry shit in. 75 pounds, and if you're walking, because you may have to do that at some point, that's a hell of a lot of shit. I mean, and that space in your car that takes up things. If you've got a car and you're trying to load that. There's... I'm going to try to work out. I've got some of it done that, enough so that, you can carry it plausibly, and you're not going to find yourself fucked if you're, out in the middle of nowhere and you have to start worrying about basics like food and shelter and clothing. But, you can't carry 75 pounds of water plus 75 pounds of camping equipment on your back. And you may have to do that if things get really bad. And there are a lot of people I'm seeing now, and on like that message board and places like Twitter, since I'm not posting on Facebook or even looking at it, although I may have to do that very, very soon, because of how serious this shit is getting, and I'm not sure if a lot of the people in this area, around here are realizing it. I mean, I don't have a car, so if I have to bug out, not only do I have to carry everything on my back, I got to figure out what to do with the cats. I don't have harnesses or leash. I don't have harnesses or leashes for them. Damn, I'm tired. Sorry. And I certainly can't carry a whole bunch of shit and a couple of cat carriers, and there's 4 of them. I really, I'm attached to that I need to take. I mean, obviously, I want to take Fuzznuts, Ash, and Buddha. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do about Lord Squeakington since I can't get anywhere near him. I may have to trap him and just release him outside and hope he survives if I have to get the fuck out of this area. And I want to point out that most of my neighbors are Latino. I have no idea if they're here legally or not. I don't care. But I know that there's a bunch of goddamn fucking rednecks who would like nothing more than to roll through here and start shooting those people. I mean, if I can't get out, and if I can't help them get out, and I can't get a ride with them if they're getting out of here, I'm stuck here, and I'm at risk, and, obviously if one of my neighbors knocks on my door and they've got a gunshot wound, I'm going to do something. I'm going to try to help them. I'm going to try to stop the fucking rednecks from rolling through here and shooting the place up. But I don't have a gun. I've never fired a gun in my life. And now I'm having to think about getting one and learning how to shoot the damn thing. Not something I want to do. I mean, if I took what's left of my car fund and put it towards the kinds of things that I think I need to survive or to get the fuck out of here, which would be a vehicle, some basic survival stuff like water filters, MREs, and a few other things, and guns. I'd blow through all of that and then some, and I don't have that and then some, and I don't even have enough to get a vehicle. Certainly not one that would be reliable enough for me to think about getting the fuck out of here. And yes, I am seriously considering, if everything goes to shit, just getting the fuck out of the country. Because, again, I've talked to enough people who are refugees from civil wars. I know how bad they get. I am 52 years old this year. I am fat. I'm a smoker. I am not some 20 or 30-year-old person who can, stand up and do all kinds of crazy shit like is required by somebody in a paramilitary or military organization. I get tired, I get cranky, and I just want to fucking sleep. So it's not good. It would not be good for me to be around here if shit hit the fan. And I don't like thinking about that. I mean, I have, there's a couple of people I know in Canada who have said, just get your ass here. If we have to hide you from our government to keep you safe, we will do that. They're starting to have an inkling. And Skullbeater and I talked the other night, not because we were recording anything, but just because I needed to test a few things out with some of my gear. And so he was kind enough to let me call him, and we chatted for a while. And he's worried about the shit that's going in Portland. So it's made it to his part of Canada. But, this, maybe none of this will happen. Maybe somehow this will all work out so it's ugly, but it's not a civil war. Maybe Trump loses and he actually gets booted out of the Oval Office and doesn't fight to stay. We won't know that until it happens. And I mean, I've got shit I have to do around here, to try and fix this place up. I mean, I sell this place to my landlord, which would be what I would have to do under any circumstances. I'm not going to get a hell of a lot, and then where the hell am I going to live while I'm, putting together all the other shit I need? And I don't want to abandon everything until it's, I absolutely have to. I've tried to get a few of my friends in the area, to understand that, hey, there's a problem, you need to start thinking about things. But I don't know if they're willing to do it yet. I mean, it is a big ask to say, hey, you need to start thinking about the fact that we may end up in a very, very nasty civil war situation like you saw when Yugoslavia imploded. And that's probably how bad it will be. I know this is depressing, and I know it's dark, but it has to be talked about because from everything I can tell, people aren't paying as much attention to this as they should. I mean, this raises huge questions. We have Customs and Border Patrol, because that seems to be who the bulk of these agents are, in Portland, acting in ways that aren't what the governor and the mayor want. And obviously, having National Guard troops forcing the Alabama to allow people of color to go to schools with white people is a good thing. But having van loads of masked agents grabbing people off the street who are exercising their First Amendment rights is not a good thing. And if it's impossible for the governor to put a stop to that, or the mayor to put a stop to that, we've got real issues. I mean, even if the mayor, the situation is, well, the police will do what the mayor, or the police won't do what the mayor tells them to do. That's frightening. Because there's no, to my knowledge, there is no federal law that says the U.S. government can take authority of the local police department from the local authorities. Effectively, however, that seems to be what's happening. We've got the potential for a very ugly standoff, and I haven't seen anything from the House Democrats on this subject, at least as far as the ones with any authority. Okay, I have just checked, and as of 12:29 a.m. Central Daylight Time on what is now July 20th, and reminds me I have to pay my electric bill. Speaker Pelosi has released a statement about what's going on in Portland. I'm pulling it up now. Let me read it. As our nation mourns the loss of our colleague and beloved civil rights leader John Lewis, we are again reminded of the immense power of peaceful protest in the fight against racial injustice and police brutality. Yet time and again, the Trump administration shows its lack of respect for the dignity and First Amendment rights of all Americans. Last month, the administration tear-gassed peaceful protesters in Washington, D.C. Now videos show them kidnapping protesters in unmarked cars in Portland, all with the goal of inflaming tensions for their own gain. While Portland is the president's current target, any city could be next. We live in a democracy, not a banana republic. We will not tolerate the use of Oregonians, Washingtonians, or any other Americans as props in President Trump's political games. The House is committed to moving swiftly to curb these egregious abuses of power immediately. There is no details in that, of course, but it is something. I will leave it to the listener to judge if they think that is enough or if she should do more. I have checked. There is nothing on Joe Biden's, Vice President Biden's Twitter feed relating to this. The most recent tweets of any import are dealing with the passing of Representative John Lewis, who was indeed a giant in the civil rights movement. And additionally, if you have not heard, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has been diagnosed with liver cancer. That is very, very concerning. She is publicly saying that she's not terribly concerned about it and she will be able to continue to do her duties, but depending on the type of liver cancer she has, things could turn out very badly for her in the near future. She has access to the finest healthcare in the world, so it's entirely possible they caught it early enough that they could, buy her as much as a year, if not more. It depends on the nature of the cancer and how badly it is spread. If she passes before Joe Biden is sworn in as president, you can guarantee that the Republicans will do anything and everything they possibly can to replace her. And since they currently control the Senate, and a new Senate will not be sworn in until January 21st of next year, they will be able to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg with whomever they want before then. And that would be very, very bad. Elections have consequences, folks. And if you're thinking about voting third party this time around because you think Joe Biden's a bumbling idiot, I'm not going to argue with you about him being an idiot or bumbling. I can understand your thoughts on that. But this is not the time to pick third party unless you want 4 more years of Trump, and God knows who he would put in the Supreme Court to replace her. They are putting people on the federal bench right now who have no experience as a trial lawyer, let alone as a judge. Seems to me that if you're going to be a really high up judge on the federal court system, you should have some fucking experience as a judge, state or local level. And the idea that you could put somebody on the bench who's never even argued a case in court, criminal or civil, is appalling to me. But that's what they're doing. So please, I urge you, take this seriously. I'm not asking you to, grab a gun and start shooting people or anything like that. I want you to stop and think as to what is best for you in a situation where we find ourselves in a very nasty civil war, and take the actions you feel are appropriate, because we are rapidly heading to that point, and I have no idea if the right people are going to be able to stop us from following that trajectory, and we won't know until it actually happens. And let us hypothetically say that come November, Joe Biden wins the election and Trump gets out of office. He goes peacefully like he's supposed to. Don't think you can relax. We have to push for protections. We have to insist that no other president can do the awful things that he has done. We have to insist that judges must be qualified. We have to insist that the heads of various departments are qualified. We have to do these things Because if we don't, then sooner or later we're going to find ourselves in this same situation again. So, and we've got to push as hard as we can. I know not everybody can go out and march. I know not everybody can call. You can write, though. You can share shit on social media. You can find something that you can do that you're comfortable with. You must do that. You must start doing that now. We are in very, very grave danger. If you need an example, just go look a couple of years ago, because they've stopped since the coronavirus, at the stories of the refugees crossing the Mediterranean to try and escape from places in Africa where things were really bad. And the shit that they were willing to put up with. I mean, they were cramming people, hundreds of people, in a boat that's smaller than my living room, basically, and going across the Mediterranean, which is a large body of water. And, the boat was falling apart when they got on it, and they had no idea if it would handle the trip across the Mediterranean, let alone the issues dealing with, people shooting at them or whatever else. And that was deemed a better option than staying where they were. So, please, I'm asking you to do something. Whatever you can. If you've got money, donate it to Democrats. If you've got time, find a way to do something with that time that blocks Trump. Write your congresspeople. Write your governor, your mayor, whomever you can, and say, we can't allow this to continue. And I know nobody listens to the individual. It's the volume. And this is a silly example. I admit it's a silly example, but at the same time, there's some truth to it. Those of you who have seen the movie Miracle on 34th Street will remember there's the courtroom scene where they have the crazy homeless guy, basically, who is dressed as Santa and claims to be Santa, but nobody believes him. They think he's crazy and they're going to want to put him in a home. And the tipping point, basically, in the trial scene is they open the doors and all these mail carriers bring in these huge sacks of mail that, are all addressed to Kris Kringle and or Santa Claus. And they dump them out, and that's what proves that, yes, Kris Kringle is actually Santa Claus, and he's not crazy, so you can't put him in a mental institution. It's not one individual letter that did it. It's the sheer volume of the letters that did it. And I know, it's a silly example, except when you watch the movie, you're like, yeah, you cheer. And then let's transfer this slightly to the real world. You look at Bill Cosby, okay? He's in prison because he was found guilty of raping one woman. Over 80 women have accused him of drugging and raping them. You could argue that one or two women might not be telling the truth in that situation. But when you have over 80 women, no, he definitely raped somebody. And you don't need the details, just the sheer volume, because 80 plus women, I think it's 86 or 87 women, are not going to come forward and say, Bill Cosby drugged and raped me. because it's so horrific as to how we treat rape victims in this country. And the reality, the stark, uglier reality, is that he certainly raped more than that, but that was just the number willing to come forward. But that's enough to erase any doubt in my mind, and I would hope your mind as well, that the fucker is guilty as shit and should be in prison. So, you may not be able to write great inspirational prose that says why we should oppose Trump and why your elected representative should oppose Trump, but there is somebody in that elected official's office who their job is to go through the mail, they look at the mail, and they distill it all down. They have, they give them a report. They say, you've got X number of letters from people who support this position, X number of letters of people who oppose this position, and they will give them a couple of sample letters. Maybe yours will be one of the sample letters, maybe yours won't. But your letter will be tallied in that volume. And if you've got, if he's got 100 letters saying, fuck Trump, and 5 letters saying, I love me some Trump, he's probably, or she, going to say, maybe I need to do something about Trump if I want to get reelected. And I don't give a fuck if you vote for that asshole come election time. You can vote against him for whatever reason. But let them know. Let all of them know that you're not happy about this. And they make it easy. If you don't want to send a handwritten letter or write up a letter and print it out and mail it, you go to congress.gov or house.gov or senate.gov, and you can find out who your elected representatives are. Send them an email. Real easy. Probably can do the same with your governor and your mayor and your county commissioners and all those people on the local level. Maybe you will have to send them a physical letter, whatever. Do something. Do something. Because this has to be stopped. If it's not, we are going to go down a very, very dark path. Remember, Germans started building the concentration camps in the late 30s. They didn't turn them into death camps until 1942, and they killed the bulk of people in those camps between 1943 and the beginning of 1945. And they had to work it out from scratch. Trump doesn't have to do that. The hard part's already been done. If you work for a tech company that has dealings with the federal government, raise the issue that, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this shit anymore. Maybe we shouldn't be supporting Customs and Border Patrol since they're grabbing people off the street and arresting them even though they're doing nothing wrong. If you work for a company that supplies the federal government in some way, and I realize we're all fucking desperate for work right now, but raise the issue, hey, maybe we need to rethink our government contracts, or our contracts with the police department if you have those. Think of anything that you can do. No matter how small, it is important that you do it. Gandhi once said, it doesn't matter what you do in life, but it is very, very important that you do it. Which seems superfluous to some people, but, if all you can do is just send a letter, that's enough. Because if that's all a million people do is send a letter, that lets, that the volume may make a difference, and you will never have to ask yourself, Well, what if I had sent him a letter or her a letter telling my representative I didn't want them supporting Trump anymore? You'll know. Because you've sent the letter, and you can say, well, I did everything that I could, and either it worked out great or it didn't, but at least I tried. And speaking as someone who has been in an uncomfortable situation, which I may or may not have mentioned, 15 years ago I worked for a defense contractor. We were a subcontractor of a subcontractor, and we made parts for the U.S. military. And I figured out, right as my best friend from high school told me he was going back to Iraq for like the third time, that we were knowingly shipping the U.S. military to defective parts. Now, I was not a fan of the Iraq War. I opposed it basically from the beginning, and still not happy with the fact that we did that. But I was not going to allow Americans to die because their gun jammed because we fucked up the parts. So I reported them to the federal government. I got fired for, officially it was for something else, but in reality, it very well could have been for reporting them. There was an investigation. They were not shut down, but they did lose an awful lot of business. And they have had to have new management since then. And when I say new management, they basically one of the co-owners sold out, and the new owners have put a lot of their own people in there, from what I can understand. I'm not too popular with anybody who used to work there, so I only occasionally get details. But I've never regretted it. I had some hard times when I lost my job. And I don't know for certain if I saved anybody's life, but at least I can say I tried. And that's what counts. So, do something. Whatever you can, please do it. If we're lucky, we'll avoid the worst that humanity has to offer. And if we're not lucky, well, at least we tried, right? So, okay. It's late, I'm tired, and I have still got to pay my electric bill and plus get this thing edited and posted. As you can no doubt tell, I'm not cutting much out as far as my fuck-ups go. I'm just going to cut out some of the gaps of silence and the background noise, and that's it. I have no idea what the next episode will be. It really depends on what Trump does come Tuesday or in the near future, and how the Democrats and other places respond to this, because this is some serious shit, and all of you need to realize that. So everybody, please take care. Start thinking about things that you need to do. I will put in the show notes again, because I don't want you to have to dig in the previous show notes. I will put what the Hong Kong protesters, their garb to protect themselves, because they know what the hell they're doing. And if you've followed any of the details with what's been happening with the protests, you'll see the value of it. You get hit in the head with a rubber bullet, it's a skull fracture, if not a concussion, or or safety goggles, because lots of people are losing eyes right now. So please look at that. Please take care of yourselves. Please plan. Please think. And just speak out however you can. However, whatever way you're most comfortable with, speak out. Even if it's nothing more than saying, I object to what Trump is doing. It doesn't have to be an eloquent speech. Just get that message out there. Hit it as often as you can, because, again, volume counts. We have to be louder than the Trumpers, or we are going to be in a very bad situation. Okay. And I will, talk to you later on this week.
That's it for this episode of The Atheist in the Trailer Park Podcast. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, as well as just about anywhere else podcasts can be found. Many of the episodes are also on YouTube. Follow the show on Twitter. @TParkAtheist is the show's Twitter handle. It's on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist.com. If you happen to like the podcast, please rate it on iTunes. If you'd like to support the podcast, there's a donate button on the show notes page. You can support it via Patreon at patreon.com/TNTucker. Thanks for listening.
Say goodnight, Fuzz-Nuts.
All I know is this violates every canon of respectable broadcasting.
Damned cat.